The clever cat was very glad that his plans seemed to be working so well. He watched the coach bowling along with the king and the princess, smiling and laughing with his master. "Brrr! Now for the next part of my plan," he purred, as he took a short cut through the fields to the ogre's castle. It was a very grand castle, and the ogre was a very fierce and terrible ogre. He frightened all the people with his loud voice and cruel ways. He was very rich, because he scared the people so much that they gave him all their valuable things so he would leave them alone. His castle was full of gold and silver and precious jewels. The ogre had no friends and very few visitors, and so he was surprised when his servant announced that a cat in boots with a red cape and a hat with a plume wanted to pay his respects to the ogre.
"Show him in,"
roared the ogre.
"This should be fun. I haven't been cruel and mean and nasty to anyone for at least a day. A puss in boots. Ho, ho. Let's see if I can make him shake in his boots then."
A servant showed the cat into the room.
"So,"
roared the ogre,
"you're the puss in boots then?"
and although the ogre looked and sounded fierce, he was a little taken aback. After all, it's not every day that you see a cat with fine brown boots trimmed with a golden buckle, a red cape, and a hat with a plume. "At your service, sire," replied the cat, as he bowed low before the ogre. The ogre was not amused. It was bad enough that the cat wore boots, but it was unheard of that he was not afraid of him. The ogre fixed the cat with his fiercest expression.
"I don't need your services," he growled, "but I will take your boots and your cape and your plumed hat. Then I will have something to remember you by after I have eaten you for my supper."
And he leant back in his chair and laughed a really horrible laugh. The cat was not at all afraid as he continued, "I have travelled a long way, sire, to pay you my respects, for I have heard that you can perform amazing feats. I have even heard it said that you can turn yourself into anything you want." The ogre was easily flattered.
"Well," he said, "what you have heard is true. I can turn myself into anything I wish."
"Can you turn yourself into an animal?" asked the cat in awe.
"Oh, yes," boasted the ogre. "I could be a horse, or a cow, or a dog, or a..."
Then he remembered how fierce he was supposed to be.
"Or a lion."
"I don't believe you," taunted the cat. And with a roar, the ogre turned himself into a huge lion with a long mane, golden glistening eyes, and long, sharp teeth. He chased poor Puss around the room, snapping at his tail, until the cat had to clamber up into the rafters of the roof for safety, which is not an easy thing to do when you're wearing large brown boots. From his spot in the roof, the cat watched and waited until, with a final roar, the lion changed back into the ogre.
Well,
Called the ogre.
what did you think of that?
The cat climbed down and said, "That was very impressive. But I bet you can't turn yourself into a tiny animal."
We'll see about that.
Roared the ogre, getting very annoyed.
What sort of tiny animal had you in mind?
"What about a mouse?" suggested the clever cat very quietly.
That's easy.
Sneered the ogre, and he changed into a tiny mouse. In a flash, the cat pounced upon him and gobbled him up. And that was the end of the ogre. Quickly, the cat gathered together the ogre's servants and told them to prepare a great feast for their new master, the Marquis of Carabas. Then he dashed across the drawbridge and was just in time to see the king's carriage approaching. The carriage slowed down as it neared the castle, and the cat stepped out into the road. "Good evening, sire," he called out. "Welcome to the home of my master, the Marquis of Carabas." The king looked at the younger son in surprise. "My lord Marquis," he exclaimed, "there seems no end to the property you own, but this castle is truly beautiful." The princess murmured her approval too. Proudly, the younger son led them into the castle and into the great hall, where a marvelous banquet was laid out. The king was very impressed as he looked around at the magnificent interior and marveled at the gold and silver on the table. The princess was busy looking too, but only at the younger son, who held her hand gently as he led her to the table. By the time the meal was ended, the king had agreed to give the hand of his beautiful daughter to the Marquis of Carabas. Shortly afterwards, the Marquis and the princess were married. The clever cat was the guest of honor, and he lived the rest of his days in the castle, entertaining royal guests, chasing mice when he felt like it, and generally behaving like a lord. In fact, the Marquis made him a lord as a thank you for making his fortune.